good morning. Nadia Giordana here. I'm cooking today and I want to show you how I make one of my favorite fall soups. It's a butternut squash soup. This is a butternut squash right here. It needs to be peeled, seeded, and diced. And I'll be back after I do all that to show you how to make the soup. Now let's put this soup together. I cleaned up the squash, peeled it, seeded it, and diced it. I got about 5 cups, and that's about right for this particular recipe. None of the ingredients in this need to be exact. I'm going to start here by turning this heat down just a little. Saute the onions till they're translucent and tender. Turn it down just a little bit more. There. And they'll cook up quickly. Give those about a minute or two, not any longer than that really. They don't need to be browned or caramelized. Just so they start turning just a little translucent. Then add the squash. About a half a teaspoon of dried onion flakes, and the reason I use those, they add a dimension of flavor that I like. Rounds out the flavor in the soup. This is 1 whole apple, peeled, seeded, and diced. So that's a generous cup, maybe close to a cup and a half, but whatever, you know, an average sized apple cleaned up like that. And 1 14-ounce can of chicken broth. Pinch of pepper and a small amount of salt. Squash doesn't seem to need very much salt when you cook it up. Now I'm going to simmer this for maybe close to 30 minutes, 20 to 30 minutes, and I'll be back. I'm back. Now let's finish off this soup. I'll turn the heat off. And we'll take a look at what we have. Beautiful. Everything is soft and tender and ready for the next step. I need to puree this soup, and for 2 reasons. One, it needs a little bit more liquid, but for another, to cool this down before I puree it, I add a half a cup of cold water. Take that temperature down just a little bit, just enough to be able to do this. Now you can puree it in a couple of different ways. You can use a blender, but I find that the hotter liquids sometimes pop out of the top. I don't like it as well as using a hand blender like this one. And I will not do this while we're on camera. I'll do this immediately off because of all the noise that it makes, but I'll be back right after we get this pureed. I think that's about enough. We'll set this aside and take a look at the soup. It's beautiful, pureed. You can see it looks really nice. And it's still very hot, even though we put a little bit of cold water in there so that it wouldn't be so hot when I pureed it. It's still serving temperature. One of the things that I like to do is, and you can use a couple of different things. Sometimes I'll chop up or mince up a half of a jalapeno pepper, or use a pinch of hot red pepper flakes. Today I have one of my favorite things, this Sriracha sauce, and I just put a little squirt of that in there. and mix that in. I'll bet it isn't more than maybe a teaspoon for this pot of soup. And we'll get this into bowls for you. Now tell me this doesn't look beautiful. And it tastes even better than it looks.